Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about living with multiple sclerosis and protecting your identity. In a nutshell, MS may physically limit me, but it doesn't define me. Here's my story. The doctor that was overseeing my care when I was first diagnosed in 1993 was a curmudgeon. She herself was disabled, and when my parents and I told her that I needed to start being discharged because I had to return to college, she responded by saying that I had no business getting on a plane, going to faraway places, experiencing a lot of stress because I had to be a responsible patient. Well, at the time, to me, that sounded like you need to stay home and focus on being sick. Luckily, my parents and I sought second and third opinions, and I remember a very kind old doctor, who, by the way, was the best in his field, told my parents I was hospitalized, so he just told them, let her go. The less her mind is on having MS and the less she's focused on the disease, the better. When my parents came to the hospital to tell me this news, I was beside myself with joy. I could still barely walk unassisted, but with the steroids working, I was getting further and further into remission, and each day I was feeling a little better. So I could see myself getting on that plane. I could see myself sitting in class taking notes. So right then and there, I told my parents to help me pack my belongings and just take me home. And they later returned to the hospital to do my paperwork and medication schedule, but I was on my way to college. I relate this story because the instance of joy that I experienced upon hearing that I can go and pursue my dreams was a direct result of the anger and defiance I built towards this attitude of you have to focus on your disease, you have to focus on managing your disease, as if there is nothing else. You see, my dream was to teach at a college level, and without finishing my bachelor's degree, I would never be able to apply for a PhD. And without a PhD, I would never get a position at a university. If I hadn't gotten on that plane, I would have never become a professor of economics. I would have never met my husband, and we would never have traveled the world together. But don't get me wrong, I was always a model patient. I always did what the doctors asked me to do. I always followed my medication regimen, but I was not okay with MS becoming my identity. I wanted to focus on the things I could do despite having MS, rather than the things I could not do because of it. Like, I couldn't run anymore, but I could sit down and finish my bachelor's degree, or I would never be free of pain, fatigue, numbness, but I could teach, research, and travel despite it all. I already talked in another video about my choice of whether to tell people that I have MS or not. I will link that video in the description below. But what I didn't discuss in that video was what the choice of not telling people I have MS did for my brain. First, it removes MS as a topic of discussion, which invites me to focus on other things. Second, not sharing that I have MS removed it for me as an excuse to avoid things that were difficult, or at least in my mind I was fearing would be difficult, like traveling to conferences, for example. So this yes I can attitude gave me a feeling of power and control over the disease. And even though I would often physically struggle, I managed to do all that because once I have committed to an activity or I have an obligation, that helps me power through the discomfort, and it helps me achieve and deliver on my obligations. I know everybody's situation is different, and perhaps this is not for everyone, but I also find that not thinking or discussing the fact that I have MS, I spend less time dwelling on the possibilities of what would happen to me in the future. MS is an incurable and debilitating disease, and so that line of thought always tends to put me in a dark place because we always tend to imagine the worst. But keeping my mind occupied with family, work, has served me well for decades because I always felt that what defined me was the passion I had for my work and not the adaptations I had to make to accommodate the limits that MS put on me. So when you think about it, Stephen Hawking was severely disabled, and yet he managed to revolutionize the field of cosmology. He did that despite his disease. Others that come to mind are Stevie Wonder, Frida Kahlo, and Andrea Bocelli, all of whom have gone to accomplish great things despite their physical disabilities. But one thing they all share in common is the passion for their work and how hard they applied themselves to it. That is what defines them. So if you're still watching this video, I would love it if you share with me in the comments how you have navigated the impact that the physical limits can place on your identity. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please share and follow, and I will see you on the next one.